let us dive into the topic about, you know, what are the nuances or one needs to keep in mind with regards to, migrating between generations when it comes to family businesses. I'll go with you, Dr. Meeta, first. What are the common challenges in family business succession and how can they be addressed for smooth leadership transition? Can you throw some light in your experience over your journey about what are those common challenges that you've come across?
Thanks, Parthiv, for asking a very, very pertinent question when we have got a lot of successor generation here in the audience. There are challenges, but I'll just jot down or say I'll talk about a couple of challenges which are, I think, 95% of families, promoter families, owner families are going through or just have gone through or will go through. Number one, next generation members, whether to be in the family business or not. Should I join the family business or I should not? And more percentage would say I do not want to join the family business is the trend which is I keep on seeing or observing. Well, so we will talk about that more in detail with other experts also. But definitely the challenge is that how do you entice, how do you motivate, and how do you prepare your younger generation members to join the already ongoing business with its own style of working, its own culture, its own do's and don'ts and systems and processes. So that is one. And another challenge which I am seeing is presence or say entry of daughters or daughter-in-laws or women in family business, which this was the topic when I was doing my PhD research about a decade ago, and I was very categorically told I wanted to work on women in family business, and Dr. Geeta Piramal advised me that, Meeta, do not do research on this topic because you may not even get 50 women for your interview. So that was the situation about maybe 12-15 years ago. The situation has changed a lot, but at the same time the challenges which women face, women when I say that means all different relationships, but women in family business, they face when they want to join the business and want to work with other male family members. So definitely there are the issues that they need to address and the male members also need to address. So I'll talk about, or I'll bring in these two challenges which are paramount in today's scenario.
Very well said. Definitely, you touched upon willingness. You touched upon the ability of people who want to join the business. Culture and tradition both play a very important role if I were to summarize. And definitely, the women entrepreneurship that is actually steaming up big time and definitely takes a big toll when you have to merge culture plus tradition plus willingness and ability and to have mentoring for the next gen to come into the business. With that, actually I would like to move to my next question, and Rishit, this is for you, that how can family businesses balance tradition and succession and innovation during the entire transition from one gen to the other gen?
Can I actually also add to the previous question?
Absolutely. Please.
So I feel that succession actually, it's the most obvious one is whether people want to join the business or not. But even if they do want to or not want to, I think there are no succession plans in place. And I think that we need to have conversations around succession plans in place to bring about clarity. These may be formal, they may be informal in any shape or form. In my case, it was not written down, but it was followed, and I think that gave a lot of confidence in joining it. The other was also in terms of the challenges in family business succession is the senior generation letting go. So I think what was mentioned in the keynote address is that the person who has built the business, the senior generation, is so invested into it, that they have not invested time into what do I do after this. And I think that emotional attachment to the business, and actually there's no separation of identity. Like they're not able to separate that if I'm not so-and-so in this business, who am I? But you are a person which has, likes, interests, passions, even outside of business, or should have likes and interests outside the business, but you really haven't really ever nurtured them, So I think the senior generation letting go, I think, is also like an issue which I think it needs to be prepared from the time when you know that you're thinking about succession. It's not just for the next gen, but it's also for the senior generation. And the third is, I think the succession planning actually is not like an induction into, like a 3-month plan. I think succession can take years. And I think that investing into the whole succession journey till the next gen actually becomes the now gen, who's actively, leading the business. I think pretty much the succession probably ends at that point of time, if not later. So,
That's well said.
yeah. So your question was on the balancing the tradition and the innovation, and I think again, like I think what Sir mentioned in the opening remarks was, the new generation comes with so many ideas and things like we're going to change everything with a magic wand, sort of thing. But in my case, I think what one is technology, the other is financial acumen. Like if something makes financial sense, I want to go and do it, you know. And I think sometimes it comes at a cost of, ruffling employee relations. Sometimes it comes at the expense of, maybe saying, 19 in the product, in a new product launch, even if it's not ready to be launched, whatever, things like that. So I feel that, respecting the core values on the successor, and really understanding that this is not going to fly in my family business. I'm going to get backlash for this, So innovation, while retaining the core values of the company and the family, I think that's one very important point. The other is, when I wanted to, when we sold one of our businesses and I joined another one, it was a very small business. And I love the way that, my uncle, who was my ex-boss after we sold the business, I, joined another business where he was no longer my boss, sort of came and stood up for me and said that, can we afford for you to try something new? Yes, this is our affordability package. Like, say it was 2 crores or 3 crores or whatever. And so then going and having that conversation with the rest of the family that please allow this person, to play, with this sort of money, instead of then trying to manage a new innovation in the same style in which the rest of the legacy business is managed. I think innovation needs to be handled differently. We need to have a different, outlook for looking at it. So I think that enabling conversation with my uncle was very, very useful to have. And I think in general, having open dialogue around innovation, is extremely crucial. I think whether you want to merge a business, whether you want to acquire a business, whether you want to like bring a new product to the market, when you want to do a collaboration with a foreign company to bring into India, I think just the more conversations we have around these things, it's much easier, because I think the barrier doesn't become the technology or the business case. The barrier becomes a family, and the lack of conversations and understanding between different, owners of the family business. So, and then what other way that really think I has worked for me in this is having professionals, participate in these decisions, because they bring in the objectivity, they don't play the referee. They actually come and say, as a professional, this is my advice, and then that becomes then a center point to anchor around, rather than you said this and I said this sort of thing.
Thank you so much. I think there were a lot of personal experiences that you shared, and all of them were relevant. Just taking a cue and a segue into the next question, and that would be for you, ma'am. Smita, ma'am. Some of the skills and qualities Rashid did mention about, but what do you believe are the important ingredients from a skill perspective or a quality perspective in ensuring a smooth transition from a succession perspective?
Thank you for asking that question. I would like to, also touch upon what Meeta had to say and what Rishit had to say. And then I will, answer your question. So one of the bigger challenges, adding on to what Meeta said is the expectation mismatch. And that's also something that happens when you're trying to look at, trying to blend in tradition and innovation. The problem that happens is that we expect that the new generation is going to join in, We expect that the senior generation is going to let go. We expect that there's going to be the same fire when they work together in the business. We expect that because they are family members, they're going to adjust with each other. So one of the biggest issue is that while there is a common purpose, and while they know that there is a business together, this is where the wealth is going to come from. uh, because they are family, it adds a lot of baggage, it adds a lot of pressure. If they were partners, they would have just been able to manage a conflict or a difference in ideology. But because they are family, it's so difficult to accept. It is very difficult for, I would say, in this case, a son or a daughter to say that, hey, I have to let go of my independence and, agree to what my father has to say. In fact, a couple of my clients that I'm dealing with right now, they've come to a point of conflict wherein they don't want to be in the same room. Right? So one of the biggest skill, and I would like to talk about in terms of both the generations, is patience. uh, because without patience you cannot achieve, or you cannot scale up, or you cannot build that generational wealth. The second is trust. Trust, bring in trust into when it comes to a family or when it comes to working in a business together. uh, the third skill the third skill is that both generations need to accept that we've got to work together in a structured manner. They tend to assume we are family, so hey, we know each other. The father says, I brought my son or daughter up, I know how they work, I know how they think, I know how what's going to motivate them or what's going to get them into the business. And the son or the daughter says, or the incoming generation says that, hey, I know how my father is, he's got a temper or he's a dominating, and that's how it's going to happen, that's how decisions are going to be taken. So couple of skills that really are required on both sides is patience, trust, and trying to bring in a structure when they could have that dialogue. What Rishad really talked about, that hey, communication, open, honest dialogue. We tend to take it for granted in a family, but when it's a family business, there's too much at stake. Yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you. Just to add on that, and that's what my experience has been. A lot of families, and predominantly the larger families that I'm seeing, are actually migrating into something called family governance, family charter. And what they are putting into place at this date, this time, is where the family will sit in a room and discuss on what's happening in the business, where each one is interested with something or the other, and that relevant person has to bring in an update on that, and the decisions are taken around a table in a structured manner. And this document, definitely it's not something which will be made up in 3 months time, it takes a little longer, but it's where the family sit down together across the table and say that this is how we want to operate, this is how we want to see the generations to operate. And it's not about vesting control into one single person, but at the same point of time, the person who is with the control of one particular business vertical or company is responsible at the same point of time to the entire family, because it's a family silver that is being played over there. Thanks. It was really interesting on that. Chetan, to you, what is the role of mentorship in grooming the next gen leaders, and what strategies in your experience works the best?
Next generation mentorship. I think they don't need, in the first place, mentors outside. What they need is a father and a mother. And the role of father as a mentor is more crucial than any outsider. They need the outsider mentors only at the time when they are in the transition mode. Of course, when they are in the succession, you require someone to plan the succession, someone outsider to plan the succession. But then trust, as you mentioned, is phenomenally underappreciated and assumed quality. It's like father son trust is there definitely, but that's actually sometimes, no, most of the times missing. most of the time it's more apprehension than just than felt. So mentor's role is to remain observer at the beginning, what I would say. They cannot be just intermingling with the duo, how they're operating, the father and the son, and so forth. So I would say that stage-wise introduction to mentorship is very important. In my experience, you got to have been very aware that you don't need to bring someone just because it is advisable. You bring people when you have planned, as you said, structured, stage-wise introduction, I would say. And I think every family is a very different beast altogether. When you have cousin consortium, when you have 4 generations, right at the top, I would say, they should not be involved at the beginning. Let the father be establishing. And I think I would really appreciate what she said, that open and honest conversation. We've been having even discussion that, to be very frank, if the family is able to have open and honest conversation right at the dinner table, you would then use those external mentors and external coaches in a very different capacity, more advanced capacity, rather than at the very fundamental, rather than at the very foundation. So that's what my take is right now.
Thank you so much. I've seen a couple of instances on mentorship, as he said, and I'm not referring to an outside mentor. Actually, the family, one of the very leading families in the country, the way they are doing is that the mentors are within the family itself. Like you said, a father or a father figure. What they do is each next gen, the new gen, depending on their choice of working, interest of working, is placed under various companies, under various roles. There is a family member who's either heading something, or there is a family member or a close confidant of the family member, a trusted advisor within that organization, who's actually mentoring and grooming that gen in the business and in the family cultures and values, which is happening back at home and at work as well.
This is what I was really talking about. A family, if they pick consciously the fact that they are our kids, the difference, a lot of people don't even understand sometimes the difference of mentor and a coach. Mentor is someone who has walked the path already. A coach could be off the field and hadn't played ever, say cricket, but they are more onto the mental abilities rather than the technicalities of the path. When you are after the technicalities of the path, you require mentor. Like I would go for my father, learning about the business that he did, etc. But then if I have to go for a completely different level play, I need a coach. So even utilizing these words carefully and very consciously, and the best approach is if the family decides as a first generation to say, okay, I know the roadmap, but then I'm open for your opinion, and we can stitch the way through together. And that openness would really help to co-create the way forward. And that would be the best mentorship, I would say. Yeah.
Thank you, Chetan. Ajay, to you, one quick question. In your experience, what are the misconceptions or pitfalls that you see could be an impediment in a successful transition?
Yeah, Parth, thank you very much for taking out this question, pitfalls. See, before I answer this question, you need to also understand from which mindset and background I come from. So, I come from a wealth and asset management background. So, in last 20 years, always I have been dealing with these family businesses, family business owners, and family offices. So, first thing which we need to keep in mind is, what is the purpose of business? I understand engaging family members into the business is one thing, helping the industry is one thing, but ultimately businesses create wealth, and these wealths are for generations. So when the wealth is created from the business and family members are increasing, family structures are getting complex, the most important thing is to separate the ownership and management. So as far as the ownership and management goes, the family can own the business, and the family members can play the role in management, but both these things need to be separately defined. First part is this. So, actually, in India, we are hearing the concept for last decade, which is at a very new nascent stage, is family office concept. But globally, there are family offices set up for more than centuries. In fact, in India also, we used to have uh, generations back munshis who used to advise their these family owners what to do with the financial matters. In fact, in US, the first family office which came was in back in 1882, Rockefeller family office, and from there they defined the proper demarcation between the management and the ownership of the business. Later, initially they set up the single family office, then they did set up the trust advisory, investment advisory, tax advisory practices, and ultimately became the multi-family office. So important is this to understand that all the emotional parts keeping aside, businesses are not only run with emotion, they are also run with processes. And as families grow, not only family, businesses have other stakeholders also. There are investors, there's government, there are employees. Now, how to take care of everything? You very rightly said, Parthiv, the family charter. So we call it family office charter. It is very, very important. So till now what we were discussing, these were primarily the problems, and the solutions which we were talking were more emotional in nature. So let's say all emotions are correct or they are not. Keeping those emotions aside in the family, how to set up the charter and structure in place which gives the continuity of the business and the family for the generations. So first very important part which need to be there in place is the structure in which the family office is made. Most of the family offices now are in India and also abroad are looking at a trust structure, which you would be knowing better. Then after the structure comes a proper succession plan. More than who will succeed into the business in the management, more important is how the ownership will succeed. That succession needs to be there in place. Proper will needs to be there in place. A detailed succession plan needs to be there in place. After that, once a structure is set, the succession plan is set, then comes your advisory into place. You have wealth, so you need to have investment advice, wealth advice in place. Then comes tax advice in place. So on all these aspects, you need professionals to come and advise to the family offices. Where I see the challenges, though the new gen who are coming into the business are very comfortable including the professionals into the advice, but the older generations still have some reservations, which actually is changing with great pace, because you can see as we speak there are more than 250 family offices registered in India now, and I see there are a lot of platforms and places where family offices are being discussed. So I think as far as the pitfall which you said is that the family businesses are not yet able to differentiate between the ownership and management. Once that is defined, I think a lot of problems will get solved.
I think very well said. Actually, you've actually laid down the entire structure. Which in our experience, what we've been looking at is that emotions have to be curtailed into the documentation from a succession perspective. And the first gen, and in our experience of talking to the first gens, is that their intention is to ensure that the family legacy continues, and they don't want that as the family grows, there may be a willingness and an ability of an individual to come and manage the business. There may be a willingness but not an ability to manage, and then there is an ability but not a willingness to come in. I think all that is something which comes into the governance charter, and you need to bisect between the operational part of it, which is the management, and the ownership part of it, because the whole process about is over the generations, we don't want it to get fragmented. The biggest challenge
As you
is that.
rightly said, so if the family office charter is there in place, it will specifically talk about, for this particular business, we need an MBA with this many years of experience in this particular industry to come and run the business. No one can, the family can come and start running the business. If they come in, they will have to go through the curve. All this is wrote, properly defined in the family charter on day one, so that there are no conflicts. See, businesses to grow don't need family members. Businesses need skilled peoples. So if that skill is there within the family is most welcome to come into the business. Otherwise, hire professionals.
Hey, you guys need a round of applause there. The way they have had the answer. Honestly.
Thank you.
And one more point which I always keep telling the family office advisors and also some of my clients. People say how well families talk business on the dinner table. That defines how good they are into it. I believe they should not talk business on dinner table. Business only need to be spoken in the boardroom with clear defined parameters. Nothing at home.
Add to that. So, love the perspective that Ajay is given, but I would also like to bring to the fore that succession is not just about the wealth. It's not just about the business. It's about the family. And if the family exists, that's when there is a legacy. So, some of the pitfalls that also I'd like to add to that list is that families believe that if there is harmony, it's a great success. It's a succession plan, but that's not true. That just means that the family has learned to adjust with each other, but doesn't mean that they're doing great business together, or they're building a business, or that they're creating generational wealth. The second is, to carry off with what Rishit said, it's not a one-time event. It's not that when the succession is created or handed over, that's when. It's not a one-time event. It's a process. It's a journey, and it's a journey together where generations or family members are saying, hey, we are in it together, and that we are going to make it together, getting that common purpose. The other thing is one size fits all. What worked for A family will not work for a B family. It's not going to work if it worked for an Ambani. It's not going to work for another family at all, because there are so many things in place. So what insight I can bring is that many people feel that succession planning is all about creating that will, that trust. While that is really important, because that's why you're putting in your blood, your sweat, your time away from family, because you want to build that wealth. And most families are more than willing to invest in that and create that governance, create that charter, etc. What they're not willing to invest in having a difficult conversation when it matters. What they're not willing to invest in is taking quick decisions. What they're not willing to invest in is taking a stand. So, if we look at succession planning, it's an urge to all generations, to the entire family, and including the women of the woman of the house, who brings in so much perspective. In fact, I would like to touch upon what Chetan said. He said, listen, you don't need a mentor, you need a father. And I say you need a mother in that, because the mother has actually groomed that gen. Yeah? So we need that mother in as well, who tends to just take a back seat as soon as the gen has, joined the business. So that needs to be respected as well. So looking at it at a holistic manner, that wealth, business, process, and family, and the relationships, right? Thank you.
I've been busy taking notes while you're speaking, so thank you for that. I think I recognized when coming into today's event that, I want to have difficult conversations. Now, what happens is typically the nature of difficult conversations is that you tend to avoid them as a human instinct. So I think what I've written down after you spoke is schedule a meeting with the agenda of difficult conversations, because otherwise other agenda always takes over and eats up all the time. So thank you for sharing that.
I would also add a bit from my side that father and mother's roles, which fathers and mothers are traditionally used to play, they do play, but they do not know how to be a mentor. So more important is to first to learn to be a mentor as a father, as a mother, and then take your successor or to be successor on a training ground. But most of the time I see, and when I interact with families, and especially these are not the Ambani families, these are small mid-sized companies which have got one company, one business, or maybe two businesses, 3 or 4 family members working. And let me also give some research numbers as a researcher. I think if we have 100 family businesses, then almost 82% of them are small and mid-sized companies, less than 300 crore turnover. So when we are talking about these size of companies and one father being the boss, being the father, being the leader of the organization, and also has to mentor his own son or daughter, then he has to wear so many hats. So to learn to wear the hats and change and shift those hats is the skill. And I think all the senior generations who are the now generation, they need this kind of training or coaching on how to switch the hats.
I would love to add another layer here, and thank you very much, the panel. Starting from what Ajay said, on a dinner table conversation, you should not have business conversation, right? What I would advise, hearing from her and Meeta, that no matter what, the father does not have time and has many hats, but you eat every single day. On a dinner table, as a business, you have 3 layers always: wisdom, intelligence, and technicalities. A business technicalities you can discuss in boardroom, absolutely fine. But I've been privileged to work with family businesses where on a daily basis, mother and father, when they're eating, one is playing a role of a wisdom, kind of a wizard, and the father could be at that time. So mother could be the wizard on the wisdom, and the father could be on intelligence, and talking through the son. In fact, people know Rahul Bajaj, right? People know in this room Rahul Bajaj, late Rahul Bajaj, I should say. We had privilege to go through his how he mentored Girish and how he mentored his sons, and the role of mother was crucial in bringing in wisdom on the table. And they used to do it at a dinner table. Now, as rightly said, that every family is different, but something can be borrowed from these case studies that you can leave behind the technicalities to be taught to your son and daughter on a daily basis. Don't talk about those things. You can definitely do it in the boardroom. But then there is a larger piece when we talk about legacy. It's about wisdom that transferred from one generation to the next generation. It's not about technicalities. Technicalities changes. Today it's a nano world. Tomorrow it could be sub-nano world. I don't know what world will be, in the next 10, 20 years. So technicalities will keep changing. Financial was really kind of traditional finance. Now we are in FinServ, and I don't know what will happen to post-crypto and everything. So we will be having all-time technologies and technicalities of business changing, but wisdom prevails. And wisdom is something which needs to be not given in a blob, in a classroom. It's bite-sized chunk when you're eating food. The wisdom needs to be imparted to your child. And that's the best place you can do that. Because what we are talking here about, we don't have open and honest conversation. Trust me, when we are eating, we actually are very open. Physically open and also mentally open. Yeah. And that's a different level problem. That
I'm being very honest now, because what you all said, I was hearing it, but I know so many family businesses.
Yeah.
The son. Yeah, please.
Yeah. So, I think he put it beautifully that it's about the wisdom. Honestly, it's not about what you share at the dinner table. So, dinner table could be just one form of interaction. At every interaction, the new gen is looking for a response. They're seeing how a challenge is being addressed. what ethics are being followed, what values are being run in the business. So a lot of times family run businesses, the reason why they're unique and do so well is because the values and the way they do their business is very much aligned. So the grooming is not about, hey, what did you eat or what did you do today? The grooming happens when people of senior generation is sharing with the junior generation how they manage the situation. What was their response to a downfall or a blip in the market, or the way that you respond to competition? So that's what it's all about. So it may not be restricted to a dinner table. It could be a ride to the club. It could be a conversation when they're driving to work. It could be while they're traveling or on flight. So it's not really what's said. It's a lot about what is unsaid.
If the teacher, the biggest quality of a teacher is a good student. If we are talking from a parental authority point of view, we are missing a point. A parent learns a lot from the children, how they think, how they explore, what curiosity is bringing to the next level of idea. So this applies, absolutely applies. And I think the great family business is who understands the real definition of wisdom, not partial. It's always this two-way thing. It's never about telling, it's in fact about asking. What do you feel, my son? How do you feel this? We have not given this to our investor. What's your take on it? And those are the intellectual sparks, or in fact, I would say conscience spark, that when you ask your own child what he really thinks, no dad, we should really give money back to our investors. That's his thinking. You're tapping into him now. And those are the conversations, as she very rightly said, that you don't need to be having on just dinner table conversation. That's anywhere the conversation is.
Yeah, so Chetan and Smita, I take your point. But whatever we heard about sharing wisdom and building values, it sounds like not the family business coaching, it is more like a good parenting. So if you take the similar conversation, not with the family business, but with the corporate professional. So I speak with my kids on the dinner table, and obviously you would also be doing that, to build wisdom and values in them. So while driving towards a club, or dropping them to school, or at my dinner table, those are the times where we build wisdom and values in our kids and encourage them to be a thinker and open to their opinions. So that those conversations can be part of good parenting. But when it actually comes something which is going to impact the business, it needs a different setup, because each and every communication need to be documented, drafted, because it's not only you who is going to get impacted. There are other stakeholders also. This is the reason when we say boardroom, that means everything what is discussed need to derive a purpose and some decisions need to be taken. Second part, somewhere we were also talking about mother being a mentor and mother saying, guiding the elder one that, okay, you take a back seat, now kid is. See, if you go ahead and leave things on the mother, she will say, my son, 26-year-old, he knows everything, he should be CEO of the business. Are other investors agreeing to that? No. There we need the charter which decides what are the qualifications to be a CEO. Otherwise, you will file Gandharis everywhere. You need to have documented process as far as the business is concerned. Sure. Values and wisdom is a part of good parenting.
Ajay, I absolutely agree with you. And if you would give me permission to answer what you had brought to the table, when I said mother and the roles that they play, the biggest conflict was also resolved because of the mother and not in the court or in the charter. So the charter is really, really important to execute what the family vision is and how you want to make sure that the legacy happens.
Smita, that problem was initially arised because there was no defined process in place.
Absolutely.
So if there will be a defined process in place, mother would not have been involved in that problem.
Yes.
All right. So let's see this as a child development. Businesses also develop at their stages. They mature. Maturity stage 1, maturity stage 2, maturity stage 3, 4, likewise. What both left hand and right hand side, what they're talking about is different stages of the mature family business. Be it a 500 crore, 1,000 crore, Ambuja Cements, and those kind of guys can definitely have Gandharis. But I would still say that we require I don't know how to say, but I mean देखने वाली गांधारी चाहिए. We would so
I always quote this.
now I really think we require all kind of perspectives. Let's welcome. Let's not restrict. Mother, father, this, that. Externals. I think it's really about what stage of the maturity the business is and what they're leaping towards, what is necessary in terms of intellectual capacities, wisdom capacities, and you really create those processes and systems. Because we also do a lot about, we are the biggest sort of, what we move with 9th generation businesses based in Central Europe. We work with them for creating their rewritten constitution for third time in the last 321 years of their history. 1576 is when they founded. These are those businesses, they are not just here for no reason. And to just really, what I learned from them, rather than I was able to give much, what I learned is that it's literally about how collectively you define what's your next level of growth maturity, what's your next level of people maturity, what's your next level of even understanding wealth as a mature. It's very important. Why money and wealth and abundance and prosperity, why these are the different words? Because they really are associated with something as a sense that we can understand. They don't have just numbers associated with that. It has some kind of levels of sense and sensibilities associated. These are all the things that comes with maturity. So both are right, and it's a various good perspective.
What Ajay said about family policies or family structure or systems and processes that we need to define, whether the role of the mother or the father. Yes, I would, I fully agree, and I see also the families do get benefited by that a lot. There's one thing, and that when we see that parenting, especially when the families are in the business, there is a sense of entitlement that creeps in the younger generation. Vishal Bhai will agree with me that most of the students in FMB program, they carry this sense of entitlement. मेरे फादर का बिजनेस है, मुझे ही तो आगे करना है. So क्या है उसमें बड़ी बात? It's taken for granted that I am going to do the business by the younger generation, and it is taken for granted by the senior generation that our children are going to join the business, irrespective of their competence, irrespective of their skills, and irrespective of their aspirations. So I think it's parenting, good parenting, not so good parenting, or bad parenting. That is one aspect which is applicable to all the families in business or not in business. But one aspect of parenting, very important, especially when the businesses are at a stage, at maturity levels, where they can be passed on to the second or say younger generation, and then they can flourish. They have got the potential to flourish. That is the time it is, the onus is on the parents to bring in the sense of not being entitlement, but developing youngsters as professionals, or bring in that professionalism in their sense of their thinking, their skills development, their education, or even experience, that they work outside and then come to the business as professionals, not just bringing the family tag or last name with them. So this is one difference where good parents of families in business could bring in, is remove the sense of entitlement and make them feel that yes, they have to be capable of applying for the job in the family business if they want to work in. So this is what I see.
Thank you so much. Some last words from you? Thank you so much. It was really interesting. It was intense. We did have a difficult conversation. I think a live demo of it. Several, and we did manage it. I think something to take back for all of us. Before we close, one last tidbit from my side. Mahabharata would not have happened if there was an efficient succession planning in place. So it's not about the current generation or two generations, but I think being Indians, it is coming all the way from Mahabharata. We need to go back and learn from mythology itself.
Having said that, you may write whatever you want to, but river may keep changing. You know, the water will keep changing in the river, so you may have to keep updating the document. Otherwise, it's running into problem. I'm going to lay the context and then ask the question. I think the issues that we are facing now is because there is a generation gap, which is a far larger gap than was perhaps in the past. And the reason for that is because this generation gets more information from the screen or someone out there than from uncles, aunties, etc. So there is more information coming in, more ideas coming in, more knowledge coming in, and of course the trends and whatever. That's why there is a gap. Whereas earlier they all converged because they would ask all their neighbors, friends, relatives. They would all say the same thing, and they would all put that, you know, you need to listen to what your parents are doing and whatnot. So they are more likely to fall in line. Whether it is good or bad is a different story. At least the succession was relatively easy. Whether it was the best succession or not, I am not getting into the moral part of it. So having said that now that we are getting information and everything from outside, there are more influences from outside. In order to have a conversation, one of the first things that a father and son, or father is a metaphor, it could be a mother also, is that they need to establish who we are, which means what do we value and where do we want to go, which is what is the vision. Before you get into anything else, unless you establish what is our value and what is our vision, everything else falls apart. But once you have this, then there's a living grand narrative through which you live. All the attractions and distractions can be avoided because values tell you what are the non-negotiables in our business. You can come out with a great idea, but we value this and therefore this is going against us. And vision tells us that this is the direction we are going. Something, you know, nice shiny ball over here, we are not going to go and grab it because we are going on this path. All the attractions and distractions will be eliminated. My question is this a good starting point? Is my assumption right that without values and vision on the first day itself, start the conversation before you start even talking of anything else? And if you agree, then how do you define values and how do you define vision at that meeting? A shared vision we have to create.
See, a shared vision is a very, very important aspect to first of all define in any group activity. Family running a business is also a group activity, a group of people doing it. You look at the corporate setup, 1,000 people, 10,000 people, 20,000 people coming together and running a business. They need to have a shared vision. That vision definition is most important in going and achieving any objective in life. If this family will go ahead and build a new house for them or a holiday home for them or plan a new vacation for them, first of all, they will have to define the vision. And to achieve that vision, there's a path which need to be defined, and that path need to be on the shared value system. So there will be some families who will say we are planning a vacation, but it will be no non-veg in that vacation. Some will say some other parameter. So values also play a lot of role while you define a particular path. So 2 points. One is defining a vision and then charting out a plan which is based on your value system are most important part of not even achieving a good family structure in place, but achieving any goal.
No, my question is, before you go around to all this discussion, on the first day itself, you need to establish. When I say first day again itself.
Day 1, in fact day -1.
Value and vision, you agree or not? Otherwise, let's not have any more discussion because the values are not matching. And if so, how do you define values and how do you define vision? Because somebody will say, oh, I am doing turnover of 10 crores and vision means I should do 100 crores. They end up talking in terms of numbers. And is that really a vision? That's my question.
So, Mr. Shah, I want to say that many of us who want to respond to that, but all of us, yes. You said day 1. What is this day 1? I would define, in fact, in for 5Gs when I'm co-author of the book, Genesis. The the entrepreneur who starts the business, the first generation businessman who starts the business, he brings it to a level, and that happens with his values in place. Without his values, he would not grow, he would not sustain the business. All of us, we know, who are first generation business owners or even second. So your genesis is something which is your foundation from where you have started. So your values of whether it is integrity, whether it is hard work, whether it is discipline, or whether it is not cheating clients at any cost. So these are the practices which the entrepreneur brings in the business, and then slowly when it becomes a family business, or say the family members join, or family members together do it, they have non-written, non-spoken, but practiced values in place. You'll see most of the businesses run like that. So when you say day one, if day one is of the entrepreneur, the values are defined by the entrepreneur in a manner that he grows the business. When the next generation comes in, when the rising generation comes in, the values do change their priorities. Basic values don't change, but the priorities on the values that we give change. For example, discipline is something which we, or I would give you one example. I want to take 1 minute, but very large business owner, that's Ghanshyam Das Birla, used to go and visit all his factories every twice in a year or so in far off places. His son Aditya Birla, he would fly, visit, make 1 day visit and go to the factories and come back and get his reports and all. Kumar Mangalam Birla, I've heard that he doesn't go to the factories, he just gets his on screen, all the data and all the interactions happen. He's making best use of the technologies. Now the values, when we say personal connect or personal touch with your employees, so whatever was there in times of Ghanshyam Das Birla and Kumar Mangalam Birla, we can't say that the touch is lost. Technology has come in place, yes, but the values of being in touch with the customers, values of being in touch with your stakeholders, it still remains in this 4 or 5 generations old businesses. So when you say you define your values, it is not just defining the values. Values are already set by the entrepreneur, but identifying, re-identifying and reworking on it with coming generations is important. It's very, very important. That's one. And another part is vision. Vision of the business, when we make very nice vision and we put it on our websites and our annual reports and all, fine. But vision is something that the generations have to sit together and define that what are we looking at our businesses. So that's
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'm very well with Ajay. As earlier days, that Munshi word which you used was the bridge between the family, X-Gen, or I can say next gen. But become a coach, mentor, advisor. I just wanted to tell you a small question. What's the most difficult time for you when you are just bridging the gap between X-Gen or next gen? Because the problem is there is no adopting theory. If sometimes you would like to say something to kid or a next generation, they just don't want to adopt. Or at the same time, just next generation want to tell something to X-Gen, they just don't want to adopt. How you just make the grip between bridge in between?
So let me take a stake on that. It's very simple. I make it simple. In Gujarati, there is something called a third party can only put in the words of wisdom. The proverb in Gujarati goes, "Parki mach kan binde." That itself, by bringing in a third party as an advisor, is actually a neutral ground. And the role that we play is of ensuring that both the generations come down. One comes down a level of whatever you may put it, for want of words, and ego, and the younger generation also has to trade in and give in. And that's what we do as an advisor, to bring them to a common page. That is a simple answer to it.
Thank you so much.
Thank
That's
you.
amazing.